Hey everyone, this is Nathan Williams with BlackRain79.com, and I'm back here with another hand history review for you guys. So today's hand was sent to me by Cedric from France. It's a pretty interesting hand here. I'm just going to jump right into the action. So as you guys can see here, Cedric is playing at a 1 cent, 2 cent, Euro cent, I should say. So the first thing that I always talk about that is the most important thing to look at when you're playing poker before anything else is stack size. So, as you can see here, Cedric has over 7 euros on the table. Now, keep in mind, at a 1 cent, 2 cent game like this, $2 or 2 euros would be 100 big blinds. So, he has 350 big blinds on the table here, if my math is correct. And the main villain, actually, who's going to be involved with us in this hand, also is super deep stacked. He has over 300 big blinds himself. Now, speaking of that villain, let me get right into the stats that the HUD stats that Cedric gave me for this guy. So, said he has 600 hands on this guy, and he's playing a 24-19 with a 2.3 aggression factor. Now, those are HUD stats, and if you don't know what they mean, as always, there'll be a link in the description below. But basically, what they do is it tells you what kind of player type you're up against. Alright, so when I see a 24-19 with a 2% aggression factor, basically what I'm thinking in my head is a tag regular. So tag stands for tight and aggressive. And basically what I'm thinking with a player like this, he's selective with what hands he plays. He plays reasonably aggressive out to the flop. And basically it's just a run-of-the-mill kind of regular that you're going to find in small stakes games these days. Definitely with 600 hands on this guy, there's no way that he's a recreational player. This player is probably break-even or small loser at worst, but could be a small winner or a big winner as well. Basically, what we call a regular, a decent player who's trying to win. So let's keep that in mind as we go throughout this hand. So, as mentioned, Villain 3, who we're going to identify at this point as a tag regular, has come in for the mini raise under the gun. And as I mentioned before, the other hugely important thing to keep in mind in this hand is the stack sizes. Both Hero, who is Cedric in this hand, and Villain 3 are over 300 big blinds deep, which is crazy. So let's go through the action. So it folds around, and Cedric makes the call out of the big blind. I think that's pretty standard. I mean, you could throw in a 4-bet here from time to time just to get a little... mix things up a bit, but it's not really a big thing either way. 300 deep, I don't think anybody's going to be folding if you put a 3-bet in here anyways. So calling is just fine, and we'll go to a flop like that where we basically hit the nuts. So obviously amazing flop, full house, everything. So what should Cedric do here? Well, typically my plan in a situation like this is... as you guys, I'm sure, know by this point, if you read my blog, my books, anything, is to get as much money in the middle as possible. You simply cannot win a big pot at the lower stakes if you don't start building it and getting that money in. You do not want to be slow playing. Now, with all that said, this is going to sound a little bit counterintuitive, but I prefer a check here in order to check raise, because a check raise is always going to allow us to get more money in the middle. The reason why a check raise is a good option in this situation is because since we are the preflop caller, when we check in this spot, and especially on a dry board like this, there is a strong possibility that this player is going to make a continuation bet, and as I said, that's going to allow us to get more money in the middle. So Cedric agrees with me, he makes the check, and Villain 3 comes in for a little tiny 3 euro cent bet. So what should Cedric do here? Well, 100% raise. I don't think there's any question on earth. I think you'd be crazy if you do anything but raise here. 16 cents, yeah, I would say that's all right. Yeah, I mean, it's fine. It's fine. You just want to make it basically a pot size raise, which essentially that is. So, yeah, everything's good at this point. So Villain 3 makes the call. We go to a turn. So turn is a 3. Obviously, we've still got a full house. There's really not much of anything to be afraid of at this point. It's just, how can we get the most money possible in the middle? Well, often on the turn here, I don't really like to go for a double check raise against this kind of player, because I think often they'll just check back. If he's got a hand like pocket 9s, pocket 8s or something, and he's just hanging around with on the flop. So Cedric, I'm going to agree with his decision again to just simply bet out here on the turn. Again, just to make sure that we are building the pot and we don't allow a check to happen on the turn. Villain 3 just calls. It's pretty it's a little bit difficult to understand kind of what range he can be on at this point. I mean, he definitely could be calling down with a hand like some sort of pair or mid pair, like I was discussing before, with pocket nines, pocket eights. But I would expect him to have at least something of that sort. I don't expect him to be floating the turn here as well with a hand like ace king or ace queen. I think those hands are in the muck by this point. So let's see a river. The river's a king. So once again, I'm kind of the mind here where I'd rather just bet out rather than allow, again, a hand like pocket nines, pocket eights, pocket tens, pocket queens to just sort of check back and we don't get any value from those hands. So I'm going to agree once again with Cedric's decision here to bet out. I think it's a pretty good amount as well because I think all of those hands, it's going to be very, very tempting for them to look us up here. Now, this is where the hand gets a little bit wacky. Yeah. Now, a situation like this is very, very rare in poker because, well, number one, we have a full house. And number two, as I've stressed throughout this hand, we started this hand with effective stacks of over 300 big blinds. Now, the thing is this changes everything in poker. A lot of people have trouble with deep stack poker because they don't understand that you need to have a much better hand in order to get all in here. You simply cannot afford to be shoving 300 plus big blinds in the middle without, honestly, in many cases, the stone cold nuts. Now, it depends on who you're playing against. If I'm up against, a maniac or a fish here, that's going to be totally different because those kind of players I know will be overvaluing a hand like Jack Queen, for instance, here. But against a tag regular, this is a really, really tough spot. And I'm going to argue that this is a fold. Now, I know some people are going to think that's crazy, but let's look at the board here now. We have, I think, something like the fourth or fifth nuts at this point. We're beaten by pocket kings. We're beaten by king jack. We're beaten by pocket jacks, of course. So there's a number of these hands do make sense for this kind of player to have. But really the bigger detail here is I just do not expect again, we're assuming a reasonably competent tag regular to just shove 300 or nearly 300 big blinds on over the top on the river here with a hand like Jack Queen, Jack 10. I expect a fish or a maniac to do that, but I do not expect a regular to do that. And I know it's going to sound crazy to some people watching this video. They're like, how on earth can you possibly fold a full house? But this is what, again, this is deep stack poker, guys. You got to understand this is not the same. Like 100 big blinds, I'm never folding here. I'm just snap calling the guy. But when you get to 200 big blinds, 300 big blinds, you just can't do that in situations like this. You need to, when you're playing, you need to understand when you're playing in a situation like this that any competent player on the other side also understands how deep you are and that you can't just shove crazy amounts in the middle here. You can't just lose 3 stacks here because you couldn't get away. It does change things a lot. So I am going to agree with Cedric's decision at this point. I agree with his decisions throughout every stage of this hand. Again, some people are going to think it's a crazy fold on the river, but like I said, deep stack poker changes everything, guys. For instance, you can easily get away from kings preflop in 200 big blinds deep, 300 big blinds deep. This is something that you guys need to be thinking about, especially the live players that are watching this. And also, I would say the Zoom players, or if you play, games like Zone or Fast Forward on Party Poker, which is essentially the same thing, a Zoom-style game. In a lot of those games, and live games as well, often the stacks will get super deep. And again, this is just my opinion, but a lot of people will make a call here with their full house and they'll chalk it up to a cooler when the other guy turns over king jack. But you got to understand, guys, like for 300 big blinds, there's no crying call with a cooler. This is a spot where you need to be putting on your thinking cap and thinking on a higher level and understanding that we need to seriously consider making a fold when there's when the stacks are this deep. So those are my thoughts on this hand. Super interesting hand. I don't normally get people sending me deep stacked hands like this. So thank you very much, Cedric, for sending me this hand. As always, I want to know your guys' thoughts in the comments below. I'm sure there'll be a couple, more than a couple on this one. So let me know your thoughts. Would you have played the hand differently? And of course, most importantly, would you have made a different decision on the river there when the guy shoves in over 300 big blinds and you've got what I believe is to be about the fourth nuts or something there. If you guys enjoy watching hand history reviews at the micro stakes like this, make sure you give this video a thumbs up, and also make sure you subscribe to my YouTube channel, as I'm putting out videos like this, usually around once a week. We're just starting off 2019 here, so I'm going to have tons and tons more videos just like this for you guys. And lastly, if you want my complete strategy on how I crush the micros, make sure you check out my free poker cheat sheet. It's the top link in the description below. It's a roughly 50-page little ebook guide. I'll basically give you my complete strategy on what I do in every situation at the micros. So thanks a lot for watching, guys. It's been Nathan Williams with BlackRain79.com.